What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique, aka Unique Mazique, the hardest working man in sports and gaming. I am a fight guy. I'm a Forbes contributor, and I also write for Heavy.com. Have my fellow fight guy, fellow Forbes contributor, and boxing manager of the year nominee, Peter Kahn. What is going on, Peter?
Hey, Brian, it's great to be here with you as always. I'm enjoying the Monday, Wednesday, Friday consistency.
It was just something about the way you started. You started sounding like Barry White, like the white beard, like the white beard. You was like, "Hey, okay. Brian, show your ride."
But listen, this is great. We're having a lot of fun. Here.
All right, we're not having fun yet, but we hopefully will get there. And one of the reasons we're gonna have fun is because we're powered by Fight TV. And we're presented by Bet Online. If you're watching this on YouTube, you should actually also migrate over and subscribe to Fight TV. If you're watching on Fight TV, you 100% should be searching us on YouTube so you can subscribe to the channel as well as like it, as well as search it. When you subscribe to, you got to click that bell, the notifications bell, ding, ding, hit it. You got to make sure you do that so that you'll know when the videos go up. And it's not just this show, it's other stuff that we do, combat sports related. You need to be able to see that. So without further ado, we're going to jump into round one. Now, Jermall Charlo is moving up to 168 pounds. He wants to fight David Benavides. I got some thoughts on that, but I got to ask you, Peter, why do you think he's inclined to do that?
I mean, look, first of all, I think it's a good idea because he is a big middleweight. He's a big guy.
Yes, he is.
And, we've talked about that. And I've had the opportunity, like I said, in December when Dennis Hogan fought him, to spend a lot of time during, fight week and that whole buildup. And even fighting, I mean, Jermall Charlo's a big middleweight. He was a big junior middleweight. He's a big middleweight. He has the height and the size to be successful at super middleweight. And I also think that it allows him to continue to chase the likes of Canelo. It opens the door to Daniel Jacobs. It also opens the door to Caleb Plant. Obviously, he's looking at Benavides as a pathway to a world title. All of those fighters that we named, except for Canelo, reside under the PBC banner, and Jacobs. But, there's plenty of talent and champions within that PBC umbrella that really become an easy path. I don't see Charlo taking a super middleweight tune-up. I see him going straight into a world title fight. The WBC will certainly probably allow him to do that, to challenge, being that he's a world champion at middleweight. But I think it's an entertaining idea. I think it allows him to pursue the multi-divisional championship goals. He enters a new category of fighter that becomes 3 division, which, I mean, it's really impressive.
Yes.
So I also believe that success at super middleweight will open the door for him to go to light heavyweight, where I really believe he could compete. So I really don't see it as a bad thing. I think that at middleweight, if these fights that the public would like to see aren't happening, like I said, why not move up and look for some of these other world title fights? I mean, I think the super middleweight division has, like we talked about last week, very competitive, some really great opportunities. And I also think it's where Canelo might settle in, and where Jermall Charlo might have a better opportunity of landing a fight like that. Oh, in addition, I can't believe I left out Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders. I mean, there's a lot of big fights at that weight.
That's a scary fight too. I think everybody against Callum Smith right now is a scary fight. But the other thing I think that you didn't mention that I also think is a factor is him and his twin brother, Jermall, are seemingly always very conscious of making sure that they're not in the same weight class for long. And Jermall has not moved up from 154 to 160. But for Jermall to say that he is makes me think that at some point soon, Jermall may move up to 160 and then start to compete at 160, so that whole dynamic isn't there. I saw a video of them, an interview some years ago, and someone had asked them, would they be willing to fight? I mean, obviously, identical twins, it's probably natural that they'd fight in the same weight class, but not automatic. And I remember one of the brothers was like, yeah, I do it. The other one was like, absolutely not. There is no way I'm fighting him. I would never do that. And so I noticed over the years, both brothers started to say, no, we won't fight each other. And I've always liked that. It's one thing that I really respected about the Klitschko's, that they would not allow boxing and the boxing promoters and even the fans to influence them in a way that pushed them into fighting each other. I noticed with Mike and Jerry Quarry were basically put into a position where they fought each other for the right to challenge Muhammad Ali. Basically the right to go get beat up by Muhammad Ali. And Jerry Quarry won that fight, and he's the one who took the beating from Ali. He also took the payday, of course. But they always talked about how much of stress and it put on their mother to watch that fight and to have that go on. So I think about that same sort of thing when I think about the Charlo. So I also think that could be a factor in it as well, too, just not being in the same weight class as Jermall. So I don't know if that's something that you've even become aware of, or if that's something. I mean, how would you feel if you were potentially set up to fight your brother? Would you? How would you?
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. I mean, it's a really good point. I didn't really think about it, but yeah, I mean, I never even mentally anticipated the Klitschko's ever fighting each other, nor would I think or encourage the Charlos to fight each other. I just don't think it's feasible anyway. So it's not like two sisters competing against each other in tennis. It's a whole different ball game. Look, I think it's a good idea. And if Jermall is moving up, that's also a good idea. Anytime guys move up and challenge themselves and add some new competition to a division where there are other options and other fights to make, go for it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's a very good idea for him to move up. I also think it'd be a good idea for Jermall to move up. I would like to see one of them or both of them meet Jared Hearn at some point. I think that's just a fight that just always made sense. We didn't get a chance to see it because, of course, Hearn lost to J-Rock, and then Charlo lost to Tony Harrison, even though he avenged that loss. Now, now that J-Rock is lost, it would seem that if Hearn is going to regain his title, which I can't understand why in the world Jared Hearn is still fighting at 154. Jared Hearn looks like a heavyweight if you see him. But it is what it is. So we'll see what happens, but it's an interesting dynamic. But yeah, I'm looking, you guys know, everybody knows I'm a big fan of the Charlos just overall. I love to see them become bigger parts of what goes on in the sport. I think that they would be good for the sport if given bigger platforms. So we'll see what happens. But let's go into our first between the rounds. And I know you had something. We're going across the pond for this.
Right.
What do you got?
So I was reading on Boxing Scene yesterday, over the weekend, that Eddie Hearn said that he regrets not signing Tyson Fury when he had the opportunity.
Yes.
And as I read the story, I knew in my mind when he was referring to, but I had to read through to confirm that, in fact, it was Monaco. And I'm thinking it was 2018.
Feels right.
But it would have been, I was there. So it was November 2018. We were in Monaco. Dimitri Bivol was fighting Trent Broadhurst on HBO in the main event, WBA light heavyweight championship. And it was, it was just a small group of people that were staying at the hotel. It was the fighters, fight camps, match room, and Tyson Fury was there. And he was there. He doesn't look anything like the Tyson Fury that we see today. He was quite large, quite out of shape. I had talked to him a lot during that week, and he was expressing that he was getting back in shape, that he was going to train, that he was going to compete, that he was going to win the heavyweight title again. And that was when a lot of people were calling him out too. And he was talking to me about it. And I remember because he was telling me that, Shannon Briggs is calling him out. All these people were calling him out. They thought that he was sort of finished and kind of in no man's land. But I guess what I have to say is I don't think that Eddie, I know in hindsight he regrets it, but I don't know how much of a push he was making to sign him, because at the time I think that there was a big question mark as far as, will Tyson Fury really come back? Will he really put his demons behind him? Will he get back in top form? And would he be able to compete and win the heavyweight title? So, I know Eddie regrets it. What I'm saying is I don't know how much of a realistic scenario it actually really was.
That's interesting, and obviously I'm going to have something to say about that in the championship rounds. But I did want to go ahead and show I believe this is the time period
that you're referring to. That's in Monaco. Yeah, in
Monaco, you can see there's a poster back there. It says Casino de Monaco. So it was in 2017.
Okay, 2017.
October 2017. So that is you can tell. This is not the Tyson Fury from a physical shape standpoint that we're seeing now. So, he like you said, he regrets not signing him. I have a take on that as well, but we'll get into that in the championship rounds for sure. Let's jump ahead into round 2. We're going to jump sports. We're going to go to UFC go to MMA, talk about UFC 249. The odds are out for 249. It's on May 9th. I'm only going to really talk about the main card.
Okay.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to point out the underdog on the main card that I think has the best chance to come through for somebody that's willing to take a little bit of a risk. Because for the most part, the favorites on the main card are tough to go against. Every once in a while, you see something, you're like, I don't know about that guy. I think, or this girl, she's maybe favored, and I'm not sure this is a good idea. But there's actually two in particular that I think you really need to take a look at. And Dominic Cruz is a plus 200 underdog against Henry Cejudo in the co-main event. Essentially, Dominic Cruz is coming off a huge layoff. He's been riddled by injuries throughout his career. Everybody knows he is one of the greatest bantamweights of all time. I think most people would consider him a top 10 to 15 mixed martial artist in the history of the sport. But it's always been about injuries. But I think that first of all, Henry Cejudo is not a natural bantamweight. He fought at flyweight originally. Of course, yes, he did defeat TJ Dillashaw to win the bantamweight title. But there's a size issue from a length standpoint. And when we've seen Henry Cejudo have problems, which is against Demetrius Johnson, we're talking about athletic movers who can go in and out, can stick, and guys who can either avoid being taken down or somewhat handle themselves once they're taken down. Now, if you know anything about Dominic Cruz, you know that Dominic Cruz is extremely difficult to be taken down, very difficult to be taken down. And I don't know that even if we're talking about what could be a compromise, Dominic Cruz could be. Everybody knows that. But if we are suspecting that Dominic Cruz is anywhere close to what he normally is, I think this is a fight that is contested on the feet. And with the amount of movement that we generally see from Dominic Cruz, and of course, this entire card is taking place under some different sorts of circumstances. We don't know what the conditioning is going to be like for either guy. But this is one to keep an eye on.
Well, maybe the odds makers do.
Right. Maybe they do.
Maybe the folks at betonline.ag know something that we don't know.
Because these odds definitely do come from betonline.ag, and they are saying this. But plus 200?
Bet 100 to win 200. That's great line value.
That seems pretty steep.
Especially if you think that there's a good possibility that it can happen.
I do. I think that it's...
Now, what is the favorite sitting at?
The favorite, Henry Cejudo, is at minus 235.
Interesting. So he's a pretty good favorite, but the underdog bet is also very intriguing.
Yes, I like Dominic Cruz for plus 200. I really do. So that's something that I would consider for sure. The other one that I would consider is the main event. Not nearly as big of a gap. Justin Gaethje's a plus 150, a plus 150 underdog. The one thing about Tony Ferguson is that he's generally there to be hit. He likes the war. He embraces the war. It's not always necessarily the smartest fight, but he's going to fight it. And he leans on his conditioning. He leans on his durability. But Justin Gaethje is also not one that's difficult to hit, but he's a come forward, break you down from the base or foundation up sort of a fighter. And this fight is going to be, I can't imagine it not being action packed. These guys just kind of don't know any other way to fight. But I don't know that Tony can afford to allow himself to be touched as much as he generally allows himself to be touched in most fights and win this fight the way he generally does. If Justin Gaethje hurts him, as we've seen Tony Ferguson days cut, staggered before, I don't know that he has that ability to come back against Justin Gaethje in this way. We're also talking about somebody in Tony Ferguson who is experiencing a long layoff. He's also been injured several times. We really don't know which Tony Ferguson that we're going to get. We can talk about the Tony Ferguson of, throughout his entire career, this huge winning streak that he's on, but he's also aging and he's also experiencing a big layoff in addition to the pandemic. So that's another one I advise you to watch. Make sure that you take a look at that. It's plus 150 for Justin Gaethje, according to Bet Online. And those are the two underdogs on the main card that I advise most people to pay most attention to. That if I was a betting guy and I'm going to put something down on an underdog on the main card, it would be those two, one of those two guys, if not both.
I love it. Brian Mazique, best bets.
That's what I got. It's a great card though. Overall, it's just a fantastic card. Even the quote unquote early prelims, right. Charles Rosa against Bryce Mitchell, Sam Alvey against Ryan Spann, Nico Price against Vicente Luque, Uriah Hall against Jacare. There really is not a dead spot on this card. It really isn't.
So the female fight was pulled from this one?
Rose Namajunas was pulled off the card, and so also was Amanda Nunes. Maybe Amanda Nunes will be added to like the May 13th and the May 16th.
Right, that's what I was going to ask.
Sure.
Interesting.
They haven't announced anything for those cards as of yet.
Right.
And there are no odds posted for those cards. The only odds that are posted for either the 13th or the 16th card is Dustin Poirier against Daniel Hooker. Dustin Poirier is a minus 165 favorite for that. But that's the only one. And that event is being called UFC on ESPN plus 33. So we will see. Can't wait, though. I am not going to lie. I cannot wait. So let's jump into our next Between the Rounds. And this is something different that I wanted to bring. We haven't.
Right.
I kind of mentioned this last week, and it's something that I wanted to start. I think we were talking about Ricardo Lopez, and we mentioned a couple other guys. Right. And I'm a boxing kind of history kind of guy. It started like in the 80s, and I just been that way ever since. So
you're becoming like a Steve Farhood, like a legitimate historian.
If I could get to that level, that would be the absolute cherry on top of the sundae. Because that dude, we've had Steve Farhood on the show twice, and just listening to the knowledge that emanates from that dude it's entertaining to me anyway. Yeah. So on my best day, I got the knowledge that Steve Farhood has. So my guy, this is something I want to start. This is a fighter that you need to YouTube, a fighter you need to look up in the event you don't know who he is. And my guy this week is Kyosai Galaxy.
I don't know who he is.
You do know who he is. There's no way you don't know.
Well, I mean, look, if this segment's like guys that we shouldn't know, we got to look up. I mean, is he from Thailand?
He is from Thailand. He is regarded as
former WBA champion, long time ago.
Super flyweight, yes. Super fly.
From Muay Thai to boxing.
Yes, from Muay Thai, which is a very common transition among Thai fighters, because generally Thai fighters grow up practicing Muay Thai, and some of them transition to traditional boxing, others don't. But Kaisai Galaxy is regarded by most as the greatest Thai boxer in history. Obviously, all of that stuff is always opinionated, but
Right.
he gets that that distinction by most.
Thai boxer.
Thai boxer,
Not
Thai fighter.
not Muay Thai fighter.
No,
Thai
boxer.
All right, this is your between the rounds. I'm going to be quiet.
No, well, yeah. Just you can come back later. But I'm gonna state the case for why you need the YouTube Kaisai Galaxy. 47-1 throughout his career, 41 knockouts. If you know anything about the smaller weight classes, that sort of KO ratio is rare, very rare. Southpaw with we talked about Ricardo Lopez. Reminding us of Inoue, the torque and the leverage that Inoue gets on his shots in the smaller weight classes. If you look at Galaxy fight, you see something. To me, I don't see very many guys in the smaller weight classes who are able to sit down on shots and to create that snap, especially with shorter punches like the 6-inch punches, and those he just generated such a snap on the shots. It was, if you watch him, I think you can see what I mean. And I'm talking, of course, obviously the people who've never seen him fight. 5'5", just compact and powerful. Underrated defense. There's a whole video that you can watch just on him slipping punches. Didn't keep his hands extremely high through most of, in most fights. He fought with this cool and this calm and this presence, almost as if he just always knew, I'll be able to avoid the shot. I'll be able to slip the shot. I'll be able to move just a little bit to the left, just a little bit to the right. But when I counter, this is what I'm here for. And it just a very, very underrated fighter, I think, in the grand scheme of things, when people talk about like the best fighters of the 80s, because the 80s was his time. He dominated super flyweight division pretty much throughout the entire decade. But he very rarely fought outside of Thailand, which is one of the reasons why I think most people, especially American boxing fans, may have never heard of him. So that is my between the rounds. I cannot wait to hear, because I got the feeling you got something potent to come back with.
Maybe.
So
I mean, we'll see.
I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait to hear it.
The wheels are turning. The wheels are turning.
The wheels are turning, and the wheels on the Peter go round and round. All right, so let's jump into round 3. We're going to talk about asking the fight guys. Use that hashtag on Twitter. Use the hashtag on YouTube. Ask the fight guys whatever questions you got for us that obviously are combat sports related. I don't want you to ask me nothing crazy. And you know who you are if you would consider asking me something crazy. But we got some good stuff, actually. We have a very strong Manny Pacquiao fan base that kind of interpolates with us. It could be just that everybody has that because Manny's just such a big star. Mm-hmm. But we see it a lot, just a lot of people who are passionately talking about Manny. And one of the most recent guys that I've seen that came up, his comment came in just yesterday, actually. And he was talking about our conversation that we had about, is COVID-19 going to KO Manny's career? And his name is Carrot Tianson. I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I hate to mispronounce anyone's name. But he says, I don't see Pacquiao fighting this year. And he's basically saying that's the case for a lot of fighters. And he said he hopes that he's wrong. It's unfortunate to be in this pandemic situation right now. By the time Pacquiao fights again, he'll be 42 years old and almost 2 years since the Thurman fight. It's going to be a disadvantage for Pacquiao because he's getting older, obviously. He said, let's wait and see what Pacquiao says about his body by next year. He says that he thinks that Pacquiao is honest enough to give his honest assessment on how his body is responding to training. And if he no longer has it, he says that he believes that Pacquiao will admit it rather than just deny it and then go out there and get seriously injured in a fight. He says Pacquiao has nothing left to prove. He's given so much in the sports, and his legacy is already secured among the greats. And he says, FYI, Pacquiao's team reached out to Bob Arum to secure a fight with Terence Crawford. At 40 years old, Pacquiao still wants the top guys. He is not here cruising along, but he is here to beat the rest. He said that it sends chills up his spine and gives him goosebumps because Pacquiao lives the warrior code. That's a lot. That's a lot to respond to. I want to know what you have to say about Carrot's comments.
I mean, look, I agree with a lot about what he said. You know, a lot of it makes sense, but something just struck me at the end of what you said, which answers a lot of my own questions about the people that leave comments and how quick they are to say, you know, that we're wrong or whatever the case may be. And he just said that Pacquiao's team reached out to Bob Arum to fight Crawford. Because why? Because someone said it on the internet? Because Bob even might have said it in an interview?
Yeah.
Right. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's true.
It doesn't. Well,
okay.
You didn't know.
But what I'm saying,
you didn't know that everything you hear on the internet is 100% true.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is there's so many assumptions when people read these stories.
You need to get with the times. I don't know where you've been.
Right. You know, if that was the case, they could have done this fight 3 years ago. When Bob actually wanted to make it.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it didn't happen.
Right.
But you gotta run this stuff through the filter.
Right now, I believe there's a lot of bait being thrown out there. I'm going to find out for a fact. And you know I am. And after this show, I'm going to find out for a fact. And then on Wednesday, I'll report back.
Yeah.
I'm going to go straight to the source.
Go straight to the source.
Going straight to the source. Going straight to Manny Pacquiao. And I'm going to find out, did you reach out to Bob Arum to fight Crawford?
Yeah.
And he's going to say yes or no.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I only have one real issue with what Carrot said. He said that he believes that Manny would be honest enough to say, I don't have it anymore. No. And I'm not calling Manny a liar. I'm calling Manny a fighter. Right. Fighters never know and never, part of what makes them who they are and what makes them great is because what makes him what you admire so much is why he would never probably say that. Right. He would never say that. He would never train and say, I can't beat these guys. Never. He would never do that. He'd go out there anyway and have to take his loss. And he'd take it as admirably or more admirably than any other fighter or any fighter you've ever seen. But he would never say that. Just Manny is too much of a competitor. He's been too great for too long for him to just say, I trained, I don't feel it. I ain't got it. Never. You know how many fights he's probably won already in his career where he went through a training camp and probably didn't feel as great as he did after one before that. He's probably already fought and said, so that's all he would need to justify, it's okay, it's fine. You remember you beat Margarito and you didn't feel great after that. Or and I'm just throwing that name out there, not saying that I know that for a fact, but I'm sure it's probably happened to him before because he's just that great that he could beat a lot of guys at 85%. So usually it's always like the fighter's the last to know that something's changed. And then they're last to admit that something's changed. So
with all things being equal, I think that this time off helps the older fighter. So
that's an interesting concept. Expound.
So I think that, just from my experience, as some fighters age, the wear on the tear in training camp, injuries that have maybe accumulated over the years, whether it's just shoulder, knees, hands.
Healing. Gotcha.
So what happens is in a normal environment, you're really not given the luxury of being forced to take this time off. Now, the younger fighters, inactivity is their biggest enemy.
Dig it. I can dig it.
You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is I think that it doesn't really benefit anyone, but it benefits, I think, the fighter.
It's probably the least amount of a negative consequence for the
Right. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah.
So,
I can dig it. You know, and honest, it's weird that you put it that way, because in a sense, if we go back to our round 2 conversation, that's part of the reason why I like Dominic Cruz against Henry Cejudo, because he is an older fighter who has had a ton of injuries, and healing is a really big part of what he needs to be his best. So that is kind of what I was saying. It's just different.
Imagine a couple of years off, and Manny goes into camp, and he's able to manage that camp in a way and actually come into the fight really, really healthy.
Yeah.
Whereas a younger fighter who hasn't encountered a gap in inactivity, a lot of things could be going through their mind.
Don't even know how to manage it.
And they might not have as much time to prepare because of everything that's going on. Meaning that, advance notice for something like that. Manny's not taking tune-up fights.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest, man, and you're mentioning this. For some of these young fighters coming out of this quarantine, I'm going to be scared to see. I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of catch weights.
Right. Yeah, it's unprecedented. It's unprecedented because there's a difference between inactivity due to promotional reasons or fights falling out. Remember, these guys can't train the way they're used to.
Right.
So it's really something that we haven't seen before. We'll see what happens. But I think you're right. There will be a lot of catch weights.
Yeah, Gervonta Davis is going to fight Leo Santa Cruz at junior middleweight. It's going to be 154-pound catch weight. It's going to be crazy. I'm just telling you. It's crazy. All right, so let's look at our next. Oh, that cracked me up.
Yes, it did.
I'm funny.
If they only knew.
All right, our next comment comes from Nicholas Barrace. And now it's either Barrace or Barrace. Have you seen did you see the spelling of his name?
He's a coach from Louisville, Kentucky.
Got you. Yes, see what he says. He said the elephant in the room is Bob Arum. He is the best promoter that boxing has ever seen and has sold fights of less quality before. So I have respect for his judgment on promoting the fight. He's talking about Lomachenko and Teofimo. He said Loma is his cash machine. So if he matches this fight up, I look for Lopez to be in trouble. Could this fight end in a draw? Maybe this ends up as a trilogy. That's a page out of the old playbook I've witnessed him execute many a times previously. Time will tell. So he seems to believe that Lomachenko is the A side, because we asked a question about who the A side is. He absolutely seems to believe that that's the case. He seems to believe that Lomachenko is the driver from a cash standpoint for Arum, and that he might be setting Lopez up to lose. That part I disagree with. It would not make any sense at all for a promoter to set up his younger fighter to lose to his older fighter, because if you just take a step back and think about it, who can I earn off of the longest?
Right.
So why would I put a 30-year-old, 31-year-old who already has a bunch of tread on him from fighting in the Olympics? He's had a bunch of physical problems in the last 3 to 4 years. He's also been, his body's been through the wear and tear that it takes to move up in weight class as much as he's done. Sure enough, Lomachenko isn't hit a lot, but moving up and adding that weight is part of the reason it's some of the wear and tear, and it might have something to do with some of the injuries that he started to incur. But that's the price of wanting to be great and create a legacy, which is what obviously Lomachenko is interested in doing. Because Lomachenko could have just stayed at featherweight, super featherweight, and just dominated people, but he's moving up for greatness sake and to accumulate titles and to get big fights against big time people. So I don't think that it's being set up that for Lopez to lose. If anything, when this fight happens, I think that Teofimo wins. If Teofimo does win, Bob is like great, and then now the whole project is go into, like he mentioned, having a trilogy fight, having multiple fights, or still getting something out of Lomachenko's star. but no way in the world would he be sacrificing Teofimo at this age and at this stage of his career. Teofimo is a pay-per-view fighter waiting to happen. I don't think it's quite there yet, but it's coming. And yeah, he's going to want to continue to ride that train a little bit longer, I would think.
So it's a great question, or it's a great comment, right? And here's the thing, and you know, I want to kind of go back and, you know, because maybe people misunderstood me. There's a difference between the A side and the draw, right? So yes, Lomachenko is the A side. If we have to define A side, B side, Lomachenko is definitely the A side.
Gotcha.
But we did talk about defining the term superstar.
Gotcha.
And I don't want to go too far down that road.
No,
but
I'm digging.
Superstar is more than just winning fights.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. I'm picking it up.
Thank you.
I got you.
So, with that being said, we're establishing that yes, Lomachenko is the A side. He's the man with the 3 belts. He's the man with the 2 gold medals. He's the man that's had an excellent pro career so far, winning in multiple divisions. He's the guy.
Yes.
But we got to remember something. Bob didn't make this fight. Lopez and his father have been chasing Lomachenko.
Yeah, he's been hunting him.
No one's feeding Lopez to Lomachenko.
No.
Lopez, Teofimo, has been chasing this fight. The other thing is there is no rematch. There is no trilogy.
I just need that. I want to hear it. I just want to hear it. He is the champion of Twitter.
You're really in rare form today.
He's the Twitter champion. I love it.
I'm not doing accents this show.
He's the champion of Twitter.
You gotta work on yours. But what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is, I know what I'm saying is that don't make me pronounce the Nigerian guy's name.
Yes, we need it.
The show will be over.
We need it.
No, what I'm saying is that Lopez has been chasing this fight, and there is no rematch or trilogy. Lopez, if Lopez wins, if he wins,
it's a conquer, and it's a going on to
win or lose. Teofimo Lopez is moving to 140.
Yeah,
win or lose. So that's why I'm telling you that, like, even with the fighter I managed, George Kambosos Jr., when he beats Lee Selby, when he beats Lee Selby for the IBF Eliminator.
What?
For number 1, right, which is the next fight that's taking place. You know, my only concern is that we end up fighting for the vacant title.
Yes.
Because, you know, not because Teofimo's afraid or he's moving to 140.
140.
I mean, we would love that. I think it would be a great fight, but he's moving to 140. But to get to Nicholas's question, Bob Arum was put in a situation where Teofimo was absolutely chasing this fight.
Yeah.
And, you know,
because he's the type of guy that you can't ignore because of the mouthpiece that he has, the mouthpiece that his dad has, and the talent. Right. So the thing of it is because he is this guy, ESPN and Top Rank is giving him a platform because they recognize it. So he may be, you know, expediting this whole process because of talent and mouthpiece. So it's like, well, what other choice do we have? We got to put the kid on because look at him. But it's like, is he talking up a fight maybe before they were ready for it? Maybe is there more build that they would have liked to have had? Or maybe would they want Teofimo to outgrow the weight class before they have to make that fight? So then now you don't have to cannibalize your own roster. Who knows? But either way, Teofimo's pointed out this guy and he's been on this guy for the last year and a half. So
I mean, yeah,
it is what it is. Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty fascinating dynamic there. It really is. Like, there's some really crazy good conversations that can be had about unstable fights and unstable promotions, like, and all of the different factors that go into making the decisions on whether or not you make a fight, whether or not you don't make a fight, when you make the fight, when you don't make the fight. I mean, we were talking about Crawford Pacquiao, where there was a time where they both were on Top Rank and that conversation was being had.
Right.
And there was I don't know if I want, there was a thought process that where people were suggesting that maybe Bob didn't want to make that fight because he didn't want Crawford to beat Manny, or maybe on the other side, he doesn't want Manny to beat Crawford and he snuffs out his cash earning or his ability to earn off Crawford too early. So all of those things have to like be considered. But when a promoter is making a fight, and I know fight fans, boxing fans hate that because they would like it to be like the UFC.
Right.
People just fight whoever they're supposed to fight. But quite honestly, some of that stuff does exist in the UFC too, because two American top team people may not, that fight may not come to fruition as quickly as two guys from two other training gyms or whatever. So it's just an interesting dynamic whenever you have that sort of domestic sort of a factor in there. So we'll see what happens, but let's take a jump to our championship rounds. The first one is me talking about basically my response to the Eddie Hearn wishes that he had signed Tyson Fury. It's clearly what he's talking about is right now, if he had Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder would be on the outside looking in, and it would be all about Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, and he'd have essentially control of the two biggest, British two biggest heavyweights from the UK, with the biggest name, the biggest draw. The Wembley Stadium thing might have already happened twice by now.
Right.
And the payday that would have come off of that would have been insane. And then they would still have an opportunity to do a third fight if they wanted. And they would control all of the cards in terms of Deontay Wilder. Because if you think about it, Deontay was gaining obviously popularity, and he was a significant presence in boxing and obviously in the heavyweight division. But the draw with Tyson Fury took Deontay Wilder's star level to another place. It took him to another place from a notoriety standpoint. That was a huge fight, and that was the first really huge fight he'd been in. And so without him, so if you take Tyson Fury out of his stratosphere, and he hasn't fought Tyson Fury, he's only fought the likes of Dominic, well, he hadn't even fought Brazil yet, but he's only fought the Johan Duhaupas and these different fighters that he's fought, Luis Ortiz. I don't know that Wilder's star level is at the same place. Instead, that entire situation is in the UK with Eddie Hearn in the scenario that he's talking about. So I certainly understand. As someone who follows boxing and loves the sport, I'm glad that he's not with Eddie, because I don't know what kinds of fights we would have been seeing. I think that obviously Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua is a potentially interesting fight, but I don't think it's quite as interesting as the two fights against Deontay Wilder. I think the style, the differences between those two guys made for two more interesting fights, even though the second one was completely lopsided. The first one was a very good fight, and I don't know if we would ever seen a fight that good between those two.
Right. And no, I hear what you're saying. I mean, it makes perfect sense. But remember, what Eddie was saying was that he regrets not signing him when he had the chance.
For sure.
And I'm not, what I'm saying is, I don't even know if he really had the chance. That's you understand what I'm saying is I was there and I remember the vibe.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that Tyson Fury was even there to meet with Eddie.
Right.
And I forget the reason why he might have been there to support Anthony Crolla. I don't know. There was someone else on that card, on the Beevil Broadhurst card. So there was someone else on that card. And
essentially, you're saying that perhaps Eddie could be embellishing an opportunity that he had, or embellishing a situation and making it sound as though there was an opportunity.
Well, I don't even know if he's embellishing. What I'm thinking is that maybe he's thinking, man, I should have put my foot on the gas pedal in Monaco, and maybe I should have made a real effort other than maybe he made a casual effort. right?
Maybe he was there for he could have been for Chisora.
It could have been. Chisora was on that. Chisora lost that night.
Yeah, he lost
to the Turkish heavyweight.
Yes.
So it was a pretty good card.
Scott Quigg was on that card.
Oh, it was Quigg, not Crawler. Quigg. Yeah. That's. I'm sorry. So, which I think that ended like in a no contest or maybe like a. I don't know.
Quigg won by TKO, and also Jamie McDonald. Jamie McDonald was on that card.
Point I'm making is that Eddie might have felt like maybe he was too casual. Mm-hmm. Having him right there and not taking advantage of really putting the full court press. Because look, honestly, it would have been hard. You saw the picture of me and Fury.
Yeah.
He didn't look like a guy that was getting ready to fight and really still be the only undefeated heavyweight in the world right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have to be honest with yourself. He just didn't look like that guy. Even his mannerisms that whole week, he just was just hanging out.
Yes.
And so all I'm saying is that I know Eddie says he regrets having not signed him, and all I was saying is like I don't even know if that was ever really a reality, or it may be Eddie just regrets that he wasn't more aggressive. I mean, we've all had those feelings in this game of, man, I wish I would have put on a more of an effort to sign somebody.
Yeah, it's almost like you go in a room with this with a woman and you're looking like, man, I really wish I had married her when I had a chance, but in reality, she wasn't interested.
Well, possibly, but what I'm saying is, if anybody wasn't potentially interested in earnest at that time, you know, that would have been like getting a stock at its lowest point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because so many question marks still.
Yeah, it was a lot going on. He did not look like, he looked like a cautionary tale. He didn't look like a future champion.
And remember, his comeback fights were like what? Huey Fury? Oh no, what am I saying? Huey Fury. I meant
his comeback fight was, oh my God.
I don't know why I said that.
What was, oh my God.
But they were
not placing it right now. When he came back, his first fight after Klitschko basically was Safari.
Right.
And then he fought Francesco Pianetta. And then it was Deontay Wilder.
Right. So, you know, who knows what, you know, I don't think that would have been the same path under Matchroom's banner.
He had been out of the ring for almost 3 years, man.
Since beating Klitschko.
Yep.
Which, interestingly enough, I mean, him and Joshua do have that common opponent.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah. I mean, there's no question Fury Joshua needs to happen at some point. It does. It needs to happen.
I think it will happen.
I'm almost positive it will happen. There's no way in the world.
And you know, with all this time off and the third fight, you know, pending for Fury and Wilder, who knows? I mean,
it might happen even before Fury and Wilder 3.
I don't know.
Yeah, so you never know.
It's a possibility.
It's a possibility, and I'll love to watch it if it happens. But I am still glad that Fury's in a different.
The only way that fight happens, of course, is if Wilder gives permission, as long as he's granted to be the one that fights the winner.
Step aside money, yeah. Right? Isn't that what you're talking about?
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
Listen, you know what you're talking about. Come on.
I just want to make sure we're on the same page, man. All right, so let's go into our second championship round. I got to hear what you got to say about my guy.
Wow, you know, I like this, first of all, because it really kind of is like a edutainment type of.
Didn't I use that word in one of our off-screen conversations? I think. Why do you?
I don't know, Brian.
Why do you steal?
Just stole your thunder.
You just steal from people.
You got so excited. I was waiting to see if you pick up on that, or you're gonna. Anyway.
You know? Do you know?
But no, but keeping up with what?
You know, that's the name of a KRS-One album, right?
That's fine.
That's fine. That's fine.
That's fine.
It's okay.
So look, I like this idea, right?
Yes.
So here's the thing. I mean, the thing about a fighter like Galaxy.
Yes.
First of all, you're talking about the 80s.
Yes.
So, and there's a few things I want to say about the 80s. Number one, as dominant as he was in his weight class, he was still competing for the overall market share against some of the greatest fighters in modern history.
Yes.
Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Thomas Hearns, Marvin Hagler, Mike Tyson coming up. I'm just saying, like, and that's just that's just like 6-7 guys, like right off the top of my head, right? Of in the 80s. And I'm sure someone could name another 5 off the top of their head that would give you. Yeah, there's so many. I mean, Aaron, you have Pryor, you have Iron Barkley. I'm just saying, like, a competitive on television environment.
Just beast everywhere.
Yeah, so many good fighters. What a great time for boxing. So much boxing going on domestically in the US. No internet.
And on television on top of that.
Right. But there was no internet.
Right.
So now you have a fighter that is primarily dominant, but fighting in a smaller weight class. And they're fighting in Thailand.
For 90% of the fights.
Right. So you have the language barrier. You have the fact that the lower weight classes weren't given as much love. And that really still continues. I mean, only in a day and age now, only in a time now when the internet could have a guy like Roman Gonzalez.
And in a way, yeah.
Right. But what I'm saying is, like, 4 years ago, Roman Gonzalez was like pound for pound, number one on a lot of people's list.
Yep.
And that's just because more people had the opportunity to see him fight. And because it was easy to circulate that and get the name out there and people see, and, even in the smaller weight classes. Then you have guys that were like Ivan Calderon, like we said, Ricardo Lopez, even a fighter that I used to work with back in the day, Nana Kanadu from Ghana. Like, these guys were very dominant. They were great fighters. But they just, they didn't get as much exposure.
Mark, too sharp.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like,
man, that guy was a good fighter too.
There are just so many fighters that, for whatever reason, never got on the radar. I mean, a lot of times it's just about awareness. So if he's not on television, there was no internet. Really, how were people in the United States or even in other countries around the world other than Thailand, how is he going to get on the radar?
Exactly. It brings up a question.
And also, I have another question. You got to go back and look at the level of opposition.
Yeah, that was one thing I was going to bring up, because when you do have a career that takes place almost entirely in your country, and your country's not the United Kingdom or the United States, there does come a point where you're starting to worry about, okay, who is how diversified is his opposition,
right?
And
like, who is he knocking out?
Yeah, that's the thing. If you take a look at, like, and you can take this with a grain of salt, absolutely. The star levels that BoxRec gives most of his opponents, he's only got, like, I think there's one fighter on the 2 fighters on his resume that have 4 stars or more. Every other fight that he has is 2 or 3. And then, of course, everybody has a bunch of 1-star fights. It just is what it is. So that does matter. But there is an eyeball test that when you watch him fight, you're like, whoa, there's something serious here. And
look, and he was a world champion.
Yes,
for what it's worth. I mean, it wasn't.
For a long time,
right?
So that's true. That, I mean, and then the other thing of it is, if you're going to talk about the star rating, you got to figure out, like, how many people during that time were getting any star ratings in his weight division above 3 stars. Anyway, so that's just what it is. But it also is interesting to me, when he retired, he did not fight for as long as, like, most people fight. He was 30. He wasn't even 32 yet when he hung it up. So,
yeah, but Brian, in the 80s, that was old. I mean,
yeah, I mean, but a lot of guys come back and all of that. He walked away, and that was it, and that was done. And that's rare in itself for a fight, especially somebody with 47-1 with 40 knockouts, retires as a world champion and just stays gone. That's almost unheard of in boxing. Very few people do that. So it's an interesting fighter, interesting person. He is super respected amongst almost all boxing circles and boxing communities. So if you haven't had an opportunity to watch him, no matter what you come away thinking after you watch it, I would say you could, you can learn something by just going ahead and taking a look at some of the stuff out. There's plenty of stuff on YouTube on them. Just put in the name and you'll see what I mean. So I enjoy this show today. Enjoy talking about
Me too.
boxing history and boxing present and boxing future. So if you're watching this on Fight TV, make sure that you head over to YouTube. Like I said before, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We are here 3 times a week. And if you see us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, follow, and subscribe.
And please comment.
Please comment. You know, if you don't talk to us, we feel some type of way.
Yeah, and we don't want you. And you don't have to agree with us, and that's okay. You know, you could be nice about it.
Well,
but
you don't have to agree with Peter because he's generally wrong. But you should agree with me because I'm mostly right. So that would just be better. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. That's all we got for you today. I appreciate you watching as always. God bless.